A wooden horse, a burning city, a war that lasted 10 years, all for a woman. That's the version most people know. But what if the true story of the Trojan War was far more complex, rooted in politics, power, and centuries of myth-making? What if Helen wasn't the real reason the war began? What if the mighty heroes like Achilles and Hector weren't exactly as noble or as real as we've been told? What if Troy itself was a real city, and we've found its ruins? The truth behind the Trojan War is stranger, darker, and far more human than any legend carved into ancient marble. Forget the Hollywood version. This is the real story of the Trojan War. The Trojan War is one of the most famous tales in human history, immortalized in Homer's Iliad, dramatized by poets and filmmakers, and woven into the very fabric of Western mythology. But here's the catch. We don't know if it really happened. Or rather, we don't know how much of it is legend and how much is fact. For centuries, scholars dismissed the war as a myth, just another Greek epic. Then, in the 19th century, something incredible happened. An amateur archaeologist claimed he had found the ruins of Troy. Since then, historians, archaeologists, and linguists have been trying to separate the myth from the reality. So, what do we actually know? Was there a real Helen? Was there a siege of Troy? And what role did politics, trade, and power play in this so-called love story? Let's uncover the truth behind the myth, starting with the most chilling and cinematic moment of all. The fall of Troy. It's night. The city of Troy sleeps. The streets are quiet. The walls, once impenetrable, stand tall under the starlit sky, and in the center of the city stands a massive wooden horse, left by the retreating Greek army. Trojans gather around it, whispering. Some call it a gift. Others sense danger. But the war has been long. The Greeks are gone. The horse is brought inside the walls. By dawn, the city burns. The tale of the Trojan horse is one of the most dramatic deceptions in history. But did it actually happen? Most scholars agree the wooden horse is likely symbolic. It may have represented a siege engine or even an earthquake that breached the city walls. The ancient city of Troy, located in modern-day Turkey, shows signs of a violent destruction around 1200 BC, matching the approximate time of the supposed war. Archaeological layers reveal scorched earth, fallen stone walls, and hastily buried bodies. Some believe the Greeks used a trick, perhaps entering the city disguised, or through a hidden gate. The horse may be metaphorical, an image to make the tale memorable. Still, the concept of trickery is very real in ancient warfare, and it's entirely possible the Greeks found a way in that didn't involve brute force. But here's the twist. Even if the fall of Troy happened, it probably wasn't because of a love affair. It may have been driven by trade, revenge, and political rivalry. Troy controlled a crucial trade route between the Aegean and the Black Sea. Whoever controlled Troy controlled wealth. To the Greeks, that was worth a war. The burning of Troy wasn't just the climax of a story, it was a message to rivals. No city is untouchable. Achilles, Hector, Odysseus, names that echo across history like thunder. Achilles, the invincible warrior with a single fatal flaw. Hector, the noble Trojan prince who faced death with honor. But were these men real? Here's what historians think. The Iliad was written around 700 BC, centuries after the supposed war. It was oral poetry, passed down through generations. Over time, stories grew. Heroes became gods. Achilles may have been based on a real Mycenaean warrior, but we'll never know for sure. Hector might have been a composite of several defenders. Their stories were shaped to teach values, bravery, loyalty, and sacrifice. Their duels weren't just battles, they were morality plays. Take Achilles' rage. It defines the Iliad. His withdrawal from battle isn't just plot. It's a lesson about pride, grief, and humanity. These characters might not have existed as described, but their stories reflect very real emotions in war: loss, honor, revenge. In a way, that makes them more real than any sword or armor ever could. She was said to be the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen of Sparta, later Helen of Troy. According to legend, she was stolen by Paris, the Trojan prince, igniting the war. But there's a problem. Records from the ancient world suggest that wars were almost never fought over individuals, especially not women. Helen's story likely served a narrative purpose. In Greek society, women were rarely agents of action. To blame a woman for the war allowed the story to focus on male glory. But there may have been a historical counterpart to Helen. Some scholars suggest she represents a treaty or alliance broken by the Trojans. Stealing Helen may symbolize betrayal, something far more political than personal. And yet, Helen's myth persists, because it's compelling, because it's human. The idea of love so powerful it brings down a kingdom, that sticks in the memory far longer than supply chain disputes. Helen may not have been real, but the need for a face to represent loss, betrayal, and consequence, that's as old as storytelling itself. For centuries, scholars thought Troy was fiction. Then came Heinrich Schliemann. In the 1870s, this amateur archaeologist dug into a hill in western Turkey and claimed he had found Troy. He wasn't entirely right, but he wasn't entirely wrong either. Beneath the layers of the ancient site at Hisarlik, archaeologists have identified multiple cities built on top of one another, Troy 4 through Troy 9. Troy 6 and 7, dating to the late Bronze Age, show signs of fortifications, destruction, and fire. Artifacts suggest a wealthy, powerful trading hub. Walls suggest fear of attack. Mass graves suggest war. While the ruins don't prove Homer's story, they align with the timeline and descriptions. Even the layout of the city, its gates, towers, and defensive walls, echo ancient texts. So was this Troy? Most archaeologists think yes, in some form. It may not have been as grand or golden as in myth, but it was real, and it fell. That fact alone transforms the Trojan War from legend to likely historical memory. The Trojan War is one of the most legendary stories of the ancient world, immortalized in Homer's Iliad and echoed across centuries of art, literature, and film. But was it real? For generations, it was dismissed as pure mythology. Then came a discovery that changed everything: ruins, burned layers, walls that matched Homer's words. Since then, archaeologists and historians have been piecing together a truth hidden beneath centuries of legend. This isn't just a tale of gods and glory. It's a story of power, politics, and a war that may have reshaped the ancient world.